They didn't tell me about Christmas until I was 17. So I really didn't,
The bottle was always in the room, on the set, in the dressing room, at the wrap party. In the 1940s and 50s, drinking wasn't just tolerated in Hollywood, it was practically in the contract. But for 15 actors, it didn't stay in the room. It followed them home. And then it took everything. What you're about to hear isn't gossip. It's documented history. Police blotters, studio memos, court records, obituaries, and the words of people who were there. These weren't just actors who drank too much at parties. These were Oscar winners, box office draws, icons whose faces were on movie posters around the world, brought down, one by the same thing. We're going deep on 15 Golden Age Hollywood legends whose careers were destroyed by alcoholism. And by the time we get to number 1, you're going to understand why this era produced so many of these stories, and why Hollywood still hasn't fully reckoned with it. Stay until the end. Number 1 isn't just the most famous name on this list. It's the most extreme case of total self-destruction in Golden Age Hollywood history. And if you're new here, this channel covers Golden Age Hollywood the way it deserves to be covered. No fluff, just facts, history, and the real stories behind the names you grew up watching. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's get into it. Number 15. Ray Milland. In 1945, Ray Milland won the Academy Award for Best Actor for The Lost Weekend, a film about a man in the grip of alcoholism. The performance was so visceral, so painfully specific, that audiences didn't know how to process it. Critics called it one of the most honest portrayals of addiction ever committed to film. What they didn't know was that Milland wasn't entirely acting. Off camera, his own relationship with drinking was already complicated. On the surface, he maintained the image, suave, polished, the archetypal old Hollywood leading man. But behind that image, the drinking had been quietly escalating for years. Studio functions and cocktail parties gave way to something less controlled, less social, and far more private. By the 1950s, the effects were showing up in his professional life. His reliability, one of the most valuable currencies an actor can have in the studio system, was taking hits. The prestige roles thinned out. The scripts that came his way got smaller. By the 1960s, Milland was doing B-movies and television work, a steep drop from the Oscar stage he'd stood on just a decade before. He later acknowledged that drinking had nearly destroyed both his career and his personal life. He regained some measure of control, but the window the industry had given him had closed. Hollywood had moved on. Number 14. Arthur Kennedy. 5 Academy Award nominations. 5. Arthur Kennedy wasn't a flash in the pan. He was the kind of actor other actors studied. Precise, magnetic, capable of stealing a film from under the lead's feet. Champion, trial, Peyton Place. Directors campaigned to get him in their films. His decline was quieter than most on this list, which in some ways made it more devastating. No dramatic tabloid headlines, no spectacular public collapses, just a slow erosion. By the late 1950s, his performances were becoming inconsistent. Directors who had fought for him were now second-guessing whether he'd show up focused. The offers slowed, the roles shrank. By the 1970s, he had withdrawn almost entirely from the industry, living in seclusion in Branford, Connecticut. His final years were marked by illness and isolation. He died in 1990. It was a quiet exit for a man who had once been considered one of the finest actors of his generation. His 5 nominations remain a testament to what he was. His later years are a record of what addiction costs. Number 13. Gail Russell. Gail Russell never wanted to be in movies. She wanted to paint. Paramount Pictures found her at 18 in 1942, signed her on the strength of her looks, and put her in front of cameras, which immediately terrified her. The stage fright was clinical. On set, she could barely speak above a whisper. Someone offered her a drink to settle her nerves. It worked. So it became 2. Then 3. Then the bottle became the only way she could function on set at all. By the time she appeared opposite John Wayne in Angel and the Badman in 1947, the dependence was already entrenched. Hollywood doesn't offer grace periods. By the early 1950s, the arrests had started, multiple DUIs that made front-page news and made her radioactive to studios. The calls stopped coming. She lost her home, her savings, her health. On August 26, 1961, Gail Russell was found dead in her Los Angeles apartment. She was 36 years old. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but the years of heavy drinking had done the foundational damage. She was surrounded by empty bottles. She was a quiet young woman who loved to paint. The studio system turned her into something she was never built to be, and then discarded her when the costs became inconvenient. Number 12. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake's peekaboo hairstyle was so culturally dominant in the early 1940s that the U.S. government personally asked her to change it. Factory workers across the country were copying the look, and it was getting caught in industrial machinery. That is the level of cultural grip this woman had. By the mid-1940s, that grip was slipping, and the reason was documented on every set she worked on. Slurred lines, missed cues, volcanic outbursts at co-stars. Joel McCrea, her lead in Sullivan's Travels, reportedly refused to ever work with her again. By the 1950s, she was effectively blacklisted. The descent that followed is one of the starkest in Hollywood history. Arrested repeatedly for public intoxication, her glamorous image reduced to tabloid fodder. And then, the detail that shocked the industry, she was found working as a hotel maid in New York City. When a reporter tracked her down in the 1960s, she confirmed she was barely surviving. She died in 1973 at 50 from cirrhosis. Her death barely registered in the Hollywood press. But those who remembered knew exactly what they'd lost and exactly what had taken her. Number 11. Broderick Crawford. Broderick Crawford won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1949 for All the King's Men. His portrayal of corrupt politician Willie Stark was raw, commanding, and completely lived in. He was at the top of the industry. By the early 1950s, his name was appearing in police blotters almost as frequently as it appeared in film credits. Arrests for public intoxication. Reckless driving charges. The industry, which depends on predictability, began distancing itself from him. Directors grew uncertain whether he'd even show up sober. He found a second act in television, Highway Patrol, 1955 to 1959, playing a law and order police captain while simultaneously racking up his own real-world run-ins with law enforcement. The irony wasn't lost on people who knew him. By the 1960s, the prestige had evaporated. Smaller roles, cheaper productions, a reputation that preceded him in all the wrong ways. He died in 1986. The Oscar was still on his shelf. The career it once represented was long gone. Number 10. Tom Conway. Tom Conway had genuine Hollywood momentum in the 1940s. He took over the role of the Falcon, the debonair detective his own brother, George Sanders, had originated and ran with it across 10 films. The British accent, the effortless charm, the leading man presence. He had the ingredients. By the early 1950s, the drinking had made him unreliable. Missed call times, erratic behavior on set, a reputation that made studios hesitate. He slid from studio films to lower-budget productions to television, and then even those opportunities closed off as his condition worsened. The arrests for public intoxication piled up. The financial collapse followed. By the 1960s, Tom Conway was living in near destitution. Fellow actor Ben Johnson reportedly helped him find shelter when he had nowhere else to go. He died in 1967 at 62, penniless, largely forgotten, a cautionary record of how fast Hollywood's goodwill evaporates. Number 9. Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason was one of television's first true megastars. Ralph Cramden in The Honeymooners made him a household name, and his presence, both on screen and off, was genuinely larger than life. He was known to consume entire bottles of whiskey before performances. Co-stars marveled that he could still deliver his lines cleanly. But behind the scenes, the behavior was increasingly volatile. Mood swings, weight gain, a reputation for being difficult and unpredictable. Directors never knew which version of Gleason they were getting. His marriages suffered. His professional relationships suffered. The years of excess accumulated and eventually expressed themselves physically, diabetes, and ultimately colon cancer. Gleason died in 1987. The man who had filled rooms with laughter for decades was physically broken by the time he went. His talent was never in question. His relationship with alcohol cost him decades of health and stability he could never get back. Number 8. W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields didn't just drink. He built his entire public identity around it. His screen characters were almost always lovable, drunken scoundrels. He joked off-screen that he kept whiskey handy in case he saw a snake, which he also kept handy. The humor was part of the brand, but the actual consumption was staggering. His biographer documented that Fields could put away 2 quarts of martinis in a single sitting. By the 1930s, he was drinking at that level daily. He hid bottles around his home, including inside the hollowed-out legs of furniture. By the 1940s, the comedic precision that had made him famous was deteriorating. The timing dulled, the speech slurred on camera, cirrhosis set in, leaving him in chronic pain. Studios backed away. He died on December 25, 1946. He was 66 and had been in visible physical decline for years. He had turned his addiction into a punchline for decades. In the end, it wasn't funny. Number 7. John Drew Barrymore. John Drew Barrymore inherited the most famous last name in American theater. He also inherited something darker. His father, the legendary John Barrymore, drank himself into ruin. The son replicated the trajectory with unsettling precision. In the 1950s, he had real promise. Handsome, talented, well-connected, High School Confidential showed he could carry material. But by the early 1960s, he was unemployable, missing entire shoots, showing up intoxicated, vanishing for days. Directors stopped answering. Studios removed his name from consideration lists. The arrests for public intoxication became routine. One incident landed him in jail for skipping a court date, a pattern that repeated throughout his life. By the 1970s, he was estranged from his daughter Drew and cycling in and out of homelessness. He died in 2004. Drew Barrymore later described him as a mad poet, a hedonist, a man with no navigation in life. The Barrymore name had opened every door in Hollywood. It couldn't open the one he needed most. Number 6. Gig Young won Best Supporting Actor for They Shoot Horses, Don't They? In 1969. By that point, his drinking had already cost him multiple marriages, multiple roles, and most of his professional credibility. His fourth wife later reflected that what he was aching for, as he walked up to collect that Oscar, was a chance to finally be the lead in his own story. He never got it. In 1973, he was cast in Blazing Saddles. On his first day of shooting, he collapsed from alcohol withdrawal. Mel Brooks had no choice but to let him go. The industry absorbed that information and largely stopped calling. 5 marriages, all marked by drinking and volatility. His fifth wife, Kim Schmidt, was a young German actress nearly 30 years his junior. They had been married for 3 weeks when, on October 19, 1978, Young shot her in their Manhattan apartment and then turned the gun on himself. No note. No explanation, just a catastrophic, irreversible end. He was 64. The theories about what drove him to it vary: addiction, career despair, psychological deterioration. What isn't in dispute is the wreckage the drinking had made of everything that came before. Number 5. Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd was the stoic golden archetype built for the mythology of the American West. Shane is still regarded as one of the finest westerns ever made, and his performance is the spine of it. Off-screen, the architecture was far more fragile. His father died when Ladd was 4. His mother struggled with alcoholism, an early and ominous preview. He carried insecurity about his size throughout his life, even after becoming one of the biggest box office draws in Hollywood. The drinking started socially and became structural. A way to manage depression. A way to dull the self-doubt that fame never fully erased. By the late 1950s, his reputation for reliability on set was deteriorating. Studios grew hesitant. The leading man roles dried up. On January 29, 1964, he was found dead in his Palm Springs home. The cause was a lethal combination of sedatives and alcohol. It was officially ruled an accident. Many people who knew him weren't convinced. He was 50 years old. Hollywood's definitive tough guy, gone without a fight he could have won. Number 4. Robert Walker. Robert Walker's performance as Bruno Anthony in Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train in 1951 remains one of the most unsettling portrayals of charm as menace in cinema history. The irony is that Walker was barely holding together while he filmed it. His wife, actress Jennifer Jones, had left him for powerful producer David O. Selznick. The people who knew Walker well said that divorce broke something fundamental in him. The drinking escalated. The violent outbursts got him blacklisted from studios. By the time Hitchcock cast him, he was cycling in and out of psychiatric hospitals. On the night of August 28, 1951, just months after Strangers on a Train had been released, Walker was heavily intoxicated and in the middle of another episode. His doctor administered a sedative to calm him down. The combination of the sedative and the alcohol was fatal. He was 32 years old. The career that might have followed that Hitchcock performance, no one can say what it would have been. What exists is a record of what was lost. Number 3. Spencer Tracy, 2 Academy Awards. A career built on unshakable credibility. Spencer Tracy was the gold standard of naturalistic acting, the actor other actors cited as the reason they got into the craft. And he spent most of his adult life quietly, methodically drinking his way through it all. Tracy didn't make headlines for bar fights. He didn't get arrested. He kept the chaos internal and private. Co-stars noticed the smell on set. Friends watched him disappear for days at a time and reappear without explanation. But he never let it crack the public surface. His decades-long relationship with Katharine Hepburn, 26 years, never formalized by marriage, was complicated by his Catholicism, his guilt over leaving his wife, and the internal conflict he never resolved. Hepburn later said he was a tortured soul who used drinking to manage the pressure of public perfection and private contradiction. He died in 1967 of a heart attack. His body had absorbed years of damage that his public image had never disclosed. Tracy remains a symbol of old Hollywood at its most composed. That composure was, in part, a performance. Number 2. Franchot Tone. Franchot Tone was 1930s Hollywood elegance in human form. Mutiny on the Bounty alongside Clark Gable and Charles Laughton in 1935 positioned him as a genuine leading man. The looks, the charm, the classical bearing, he had all of it. By the late 1940s, the drinking had curdled into something dangerous. The most documented moment came in 1951, a brawl with actor Tom Neal over actress Barbara Payton. Neal was a former boxer. He left Tone with a broken nose, a shattered cheekbone, and a concussion severe enough to require reconstructive surgery. The tabloids ran the story for weeks. The industry took note in a different way. As the studio system's tolerance for off-screen liability contracted, Tone found himself quietly sidelined. By the 1950s, he was working primarily in television. Smaller roles, less visibility. His health declined steadily in his later years. When he died in 1968, the obituaries led with the scandal. The film work that preceded it, and what he might have continued to build, was treated as a footnote. Number 1. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn is the definitive case study. There is no other golden age story that combines this level of talent, this level of early success, and this level of complete, documented self-destruction. Captain Blood in 1935 made him a star overnight. The Adventures of Robin Hood cemented him as one of the most bankable names in the industry. For over a decade, he was Warner Brothers' crown jewel, charismatic, physically commanding, capable of carrying massive productions on his name alone. The phrase "in like Flynn" entered the American vocabulary specifically because of his reputation for fast, consequence-free living. In 1942, he was tried on charges involving underage girls. He was acquitted, but the reputational damage was severe and lasting. Warner Brothers continued casting him, but the bloom was off, and Flynn's response to the pressure and scrutiny was to accelerate: more drinking, more spending, more excess. He developed a dependence on morphine alongside the alcohol. He ran through money at a pace that seemed physically impossible. Yachts, luxury homes, parties that lasted for days. By the late 1940s, his once athletic body was visibly deteriorating. By the 1950s, the Hollywood career was in freefall. He was taking whatever work he could find, low-budget European productions that were unrecognizable compared to his Warner Brothers peak. He sold off his possessions, including his beloved yacht. He attempted to generate income by writing his memoir, My Wicked, Wicked Ways. It was published after his death and became a bestseller. At the time he wrote it, he was nearly broke. In 1959, at 50 years old, Flynn was in Vancouver trying to sell a yacht when he suffered a fatal heart attack. His autopsy told the complete story. His body, according to the examining physician, was consistent with that of a man decades older. Cirrhosis, heart disease, the physical record of everything he had consumed and refused to stop consuming. He died close to penniless. The fortune was gone. The career was gone. What remained was the films and the cautionary record of the man behind them. 15 names, 15 careers, and in almost every case, the same pattern: talent that was genuine, success that was real, and then a slow or sudden surrender to the same thing that Hollywood quietly enabled and publicly condemned, depending on how the headlines fell. The question worth sitting with isn't just what these individuals lost, it's what the industry that employed them knew, tolerated, and profited from, long before anyone was expected to say anything about it. If you've been watching this channel and haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We cover Golden Age Hollywood the way it actually happened, documented, detailed, and without the mythology that's been layered over these stories for decades. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you in the next one.